The Galactic Confederation, because apparently the most advanced civilizations in the known universe couldn't come up with a more original name, had existed for 12,000 years before humans blundered onto the cosmic stage. You'd think that such an ancient coalition would have developed a bit of decorum. You'd be wrong. Humanity's arrival triggered the usual cascade of xenophobic hand-wringing that accompanied the discovery of any new species. Too aggressive, too unpredictable, too bipedal. The complaints varied depending on which galactic counselor you asked. Yet, in just 70 years, humans had gone from cosmic curiosity to strategic powerhouse, securing not just a seat at the table but an entire diplomatic buffet of treaties, military pacts, and economic partnerships. The Confederation Navy, another dazzling feat of galactic originality, maintained peace via routine inspections of all member military vessels. These inspections were roughly as pleasant as dental surgery performed by a drunk Zilgarian with 7 thumbs and about as necessary, if you believe the official line. For human ships, these checks were especially thorough, officially due to security concerns, unofficially because Admiral Vexillar still hadn't forgiven a certain human officer for correcting his pronunciation of extraterrestrial in front of the entire Regilian delegation at last cycle's gala. Interstellar politics, as it turned out, bore an uncanny resemblance to a high school cafeteria, if the cafeteria spanned 17 quadrants and the cliques were armed with antimatter. Humans sat somewhere between tolerated newcomer and existential threat, depending on who you asked and how much they'd had to drink. The CSS Phoenix, a Terran warship with enough firepower to make a small star reconsider its life choices, idled in the docking bay of Outpost Gamma 9, awaiting its quarterly inspection with all the enthusiasm of a cat headed for a bath. Lieutenant Commander Elix Reed, the ship's executive officer, stood at perfect attention near the airlock, her expression unreadable. She would rather have been anywhere else in the known universe. The aliens were coming, and they were bringing clipboards. Metaphorically, of course, physical data storage had been obsolete for centuries, replaced by neural implants. But some concepts, like bureaucratic officiousness, were clearly universal. Elix Reed's reputation preceded her not just down corridors but across star systems, a tactical prodigy with a photographic memory and the unflappable demeanor of someone who had made peace with the universe's boundless idiocy. Her personnel file, at least the parts not redacted for galactic stability, included 14 combat commendations, 6 diplomatic citations, and 1 cryptic reference to an incident involving a Thoraxian ambassador, a potted fern, and 3 liters of non-Newtonian fluid. Top of her class at the Terran Space Academy, fluent in 7 alien languages, 8 if you counted sarcasm, and able to disassemble and reassemble a standard-issue Confederation pulse rifle in under 30 seconds, blindfolded. Her crew called her the Ice Sphinx. Never to her face, of course. Not out of fear. Reed didn't intimidate through threats. Disappointing her just felt worse. Her current posting as XO of the Phoenix was widely viewed as a stepping stone to command. That fact made certain factions of the Confederation extremely uneasy. Humans weren't supposed to rise this fast, and definitely not humans like Elix Reed, with her lethal mix of brilliance and barely concealed contempt for bureaucratic nonsense. Waiting in the docking corridor was Commander Vrapel of the Drizanian Hegemony, this cycle's designated inspection officer. Drizanians, with their iridescent scales and 4 arms, usually struck an imposing figure. Vrapel, however, had mastered the art of looking down his snout at any species that evolved on a planet with less atmospheric pressure than his own, which was inconveniently everyone. Commander Reed, he sneered, deliberately dropping her actual rank as he flicked through his neural interface with 2 arms and adjusted his ceremonial sash with the other 2. Your vessel appears adequate. The temperature seemed to drop. Reed didn't react. No flinch, no twitch. The only indication she'd even registered the insult was a microscopic straightening of her spine. Lieutenant Commander Reed, she corrected coolly. Welcome aboard the Phoenix, Commander Vrapel. All systems are prepared for inspection per Regulation 7 Delta 9. Behind her, Chief Engineer Klav, a walking brick wall of a human, stood silently next to communications. Specialist Huang, who gave the subtlest shake of her head. They'd seen this performance before. Floating slightly behind Virapal was his assistant, a Valyrian named Nyx. Valyrians looked like bioluminescent jellyfish, their transparent bodies revealing pulsing organs and neural filaments that shimmered with color-coded emotions. Nyx's colors were currently oscillating between anxious yellow and apologetic blue. He had read the previous inspection reports and knew exactly who Elix Reed was. Commander Vrapal. Nyx bubbled delicately. Perhaps we should begin with the protocols outlined in... I know the protocols, Vrapal snapped, all four hands gesturing dismissively. I was conducting inspections before your kind even achieved faster-than-light travel. The tension in the air grew so thick it could have been sliced with a ceremonial Drizanian blade, or more efficiently, with Elix Reed's glare. The inspection party moved through the Phoenix like a judgmental whirlwind. Vrapal led the way, simultaneously scanning systems, criticizing layouts, adjusting his sash, and generally exuding disdain. Nyx floated behind, pulsing in hues of deepening embarrassment. Engineering, Vrapal sniffed. Your propulsion systems are 2 cycles out of date. This despite the fact that the Phoenix's engines featured proprietary modifications that made even the Confederation's flagship look like a cargo hauler. Klav's knuckles whitened, but a near-invisible shake from Reed kept him silent. Nyx, trying to be diplomatic, ventured. The efficiency ratio appears to exceed standard. Because they're running outside safety margins, Vrapal snapped. Typical human recklessness. Reed's voice remained level. The modifications were authorized by Admiral Zondar. We can provide the certification codes. Vrapal made a dismissive sound somewhere between a snort and a hiss. Zondar's fascination with human tech is noted, not shared. By the time the party reached the bridge, the tension had climbed into dangerous territory. Even Science Officer Tivex, a Vulparian whose people were known for their composure, had flattened his whiskers in warning. This is your command center? Vrapal scoffed, sweeping all 4 arms. How quaint. Still using tactile interfaces, I see. So, human. Reed replied, calm as ever. Tactile systems offer certain advantages in combat. Yes, well, we all compensate for our evolutionary deficiencies in different ways. Vrapal stepped toward the captain's chair, running a clawed finger along its armrest. Is your captain always absent, or is this special treatment for lesser officials? Captain Shen is attending a security briefing at Outpost Alpha, Reed replied, as you'd know if you'd read the notice. Something flared in Vrapal's eyes. Are you suggesting I failed to prepare? I'm not suggesting anything, Reed said coolly, intercepting him as he reached toward the command console. That system requires clearance. What happened next was swift. Vrapal, unaccustomed to defiance, especially from a human, shoved her. The room went still. Nyx turned a blinding white. Chief Engineer Klav shifted. Communications Officer Huang's hand moved barely toward a hidden panel. Tvex's whiskers twitched once, then froze. Lieutenant Commander Elix Reed straightened, smoothed her uniform. Well, she said quietly. That was unexpected. Then, with lethal calm, computer, begin recording. Diplomatic incident report. Authorization Reed Alpha 79. The ambient light shifted. The room was now under formal surveillance. Every word and movement recorded, transmitted, archived. The alien delegation stiffened. Klav repositioned himself between the exit and Vrapal. Okafor's hand hovered near but not on her sidearm. Huang began typing rapidly. Tivex tilted his head. Most fascinating, he murmured. Vrapal, still puffed with authority, blinked. What do you think you're doing? Nyx pulsed a rapid red. Commander. Silence, Vrapal snapped. She's just trying to deflect. Reed smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just watched their opponent walk into a trap of their own making. Commander Vrapal of the Drizanian hegemony, she said, voice formal and crisp. You have violated Section 12, Paragraph 7 of the Confederation, Charter regarding unauthorized physical contact during peacetime inspections. This is absurd. Additionally, Reed continued undeterred, you are in violation of the Zirkelian Accords of 2189, the Terran-Drazanian Protocol of 2203, and the non-aggression clause your own species insisted upon. You can't, possibly. The penalty, Reed said to the room, ranges from formal censure to immediate termination of diplomatic status. One of the junior delegates edged toward the exit, only to find Clav casually blocking the path. Surely, a Flockian delegate whispered, this can be resolved without, Lieutenant Commander, Reed corrected again. And no, it cannot. A soft chime drew attention to Vrapol's communicator. Its light blinked urgently. Perhaps you should answer that, Reed suggested, perfectly polite. With mounting dread, Vrapol did. The holographic display activated, and the face of a very senior Drazanian official filled the air. Expression like a thundercloud, ceremonial collar bristling with authority. The high-ranking official was already mid-sentence, their tone sharp enough to shear vacuum-hardened steel. Completely unacceptable behavior. Do you have any idea who you just assaulted? End the inspection immediately and... Braxpal hastily muted the transmission. His scales had gone pale, an alarmed hue even non-Drazanians would recognize. He turned back to Elix, eyes wide with dawning comprehension and the first flickers of genuine fear. Who are you? He asked, all forearms now hanging limply at his sides. Alex checked her timepiece with deliberate nonchalance. 4 minutes since the incident, she noted. And things are just getting started. Commander, I believe you have approximately 1 minute left before your career officially ends. Braxpal's communicator blinked with increasing urgency, its subtle shift indicating multiple high-priority calls. Then it emitted a high-pitched whine, a tone reserved in Xanian protocols for planetary emergencies or sector-wide holidays. Perhaps you should answer that, Alex suggested, her voice so sweet it practically curdled oxygen. Wouldn't want you to miss anything important. Vraxpal's scales shifted to a mottled gray-green, the Drazanian equivalent of turning ghost, white. With trembling hands, he reactivated the device. 3 holograms materialized, forming a tribunal of increasingly horrified superiors. Braxpal, cease all actions immediately, barked the central figure, their ornate scale markings suggesting they outranked him by at least 17 hierarchical rungs. High Executive, I can explain. Is Lieutenant Commander Reed unharmed? Interrupted the official on the left, ceremonial headdress quivering, possibly with rage or perhaps poor design. Visual confirmation now, snapped the 3rd hologram, dressed in diplomatic robes. They covered all 4 eyes with all 4 hands, and a universal gesture of despair. Elix stepped forward, inclining her head politely. High Executive Zivmore, Minister Kraspiel, Ambassador Tivlith. A pleasure as always, though the circumstances leave something to be desired. All 3 performed awkward gestures of respect involving arms, scales, and an uncomfortable degree of contortion. You know the High Executive? Braxpal whispered, his jaw slack, ceremonial teeth caps clicking nervously. We served together on the Joint Military Strategic Planning Committee, Alex replied airily. Last month's meeting on quantum torpedo targeting systems was riveting. Your name never came up. Odd that. Nix, the Valerian assistant, now pulsed so violently he resembled a malfunctioning nightclub strobe. The bioluminescent patterns on his body suggested a blend of terror, shame, and existential regret. The High Executive addressed her again, this time with extra emphasis. On behalf of the Drazanian hegemony, I extend our deepest... Counter-Admiral, corrected Ambassador Tivlith sharply. Her operational rank during diplomatic exchanges is Counter-Admiral, as clearly noted in your briefing documents. The glare directed at Braxpal could have sterilized crops on a neighboring planet. Chief Engineer Xoff coughed to hide a laugh. Communications Officer Huang found sudden interest in her console. Science Officer Tavex's whiskers twitched once, barely, restrained amusement in Vulperian terms. Counter-Admiral, Braxpal repeated faintly, a whistling noise escaping his secondary breathing tubes. Classified operational rank, Alex said, inspecting her nails. Relevant only in certain diplomatic or intelligence contexts, like today. The rest of the alien delegation were reacting with a range of visible physiological distress. The Flockians' exoskeletal plates clicked like a caffeinated tap dancer. The Meridian rep shifted from mauve to puce, either deep anxiety or the start of their mating cycle. Either way, not ideal. Anyone care for water? Security Chief Okafor asked helpfully, hand still resting near her sidearm. Or a mild sedative? On the holograms, the Drazanian officials were deep in frantic whispers. Their scales flickered with such intense patterns they resembled confused chameleons at a rave. Counter-Admiral Reed, the high executive said at last, we are initiating emergency diplomatic containment protocols. Ambassador Tivlith will arrive at your location in 12 minutes. Minister Kraspiel is contacting Terran High Command for reconciliation. 4 minutes, 30 seconds, Alex noted, tapping her timepiece. Shall we expedite things? The Phoenix's comms chimed. Huang blinked. It's Admiral Zondar, and the Confederation Supreme Council. Also, the Terran. President, she looked up, eyes gleaming. They're requesting immediate connection. On screen, Alex ordered. The main display lit up. Admiral Zondar, a bipedal crocodilian with metals like battle scars, dominated the center. The Supreme Council appeared in panels flanking him. Ancient, austere, and visibly unimpressed. The Terran president, mid-sandwich, looked mildly irritated. Counter-Admiral Reed, Zondar's voice rumbled like tectonic plates. We've received your incident report. Is that Commander Braxpal beside you? Yes, Admiral, Alex replied. We were just discussing the portion of the charter he violated. Approximately. She glanced at her chronometer. 4 minutes and 45 seconds ago. Braxpal's knees buckled. A fellow inspector caught him before he collapsed entirely, his scales the pallor of undercooked seafood. Counter-Admiral, he croaked. I didn't know. Your rank. It wasn't in the briefing. Alex finished for him. I should hope not. Assaulting a senior officer would be an act of war, as opposed to mere catastrophic incompetence. The word war echoed like a dropped grenade. A crystalline counselor leaned forward, voice ringing like glass under stress. Commander Braxpal, you have 9 seconds to explain why we shouldn't revoke all Drazanian inspection privileges Confederation-wide. Braxpal opened his mouth, closed it, then made a noise like a bagpipe under duress. Admiral Zondar bared his teeth in what passed for a smile. 5 minutes, Alex murmured, looking Braxpal in the eye. Time's up, Commander. The formal dismantling of Braxpal's career took exactly 12 minutes and 37 seconds, a new Confederation record for administrative execution. By the time Ambassador Tivlith arrived, breathless and shedding ceremonial sashes, Braxpal had lost his rank, his diplomatic credentials, and, in a deeply cultural blow, his ancestral scale-polishing implements. Former trade facilitator Braxpal will return to Drazanian space immediately, the ambassador declared with grim satisfaction. He will serve as a training case study for the next 7 generations. The rest of the inspection team clustered, like prey animals after a failed predator attack. The Flockians' plates locked into defensive posture. The Meridian turned pale lavender, the color of existential re-evaluation. Counter-Admiral Reed, Zondar said from the screen, on behalf of the Confederation, we extend our deepest apologies. The hegemony has agreed to triple their cultural sensitivity training duration. That seems appropriate, Alex replied, her stance relaxed. The crisis resolved with the precision of a maestro conducting a particularly vindictive symphony. I believe this matter is resolved, the crystalline counselor chimed. Humans continue to surprise us. We hadn't anticipated such restraint. Restrained? Alex asked innocently. You could have demanded formal penalties, the counselor clarified. Their offense was significant. Alex smiled, genuinely this time. Sometimes the best diplomacy is just letting people see the consequences of their own actions. Nix, now glowing, in calming blues and greens formed the Valerian gesture of high respect, rarely offered to species younger than 1,000,000 years. Counter-Admiral, I request permission to study Terran diplomatic protocols. Your methods are educational. Science Officer Tevex's ears perked. I believe this is the first recorded instance of a Valerian requesting voluntary education from a non-aquatic species. Fascinating. As the alien delegation departed, -1 humiliated ex-commander, Ambassador Tivlith turned to Alex. The hegemony will revise our protocols regarding Terran vessels. Perhaps your people warrant greater consideration. We're full of surprises, Alex said pleasantly, but so is everyone. That's what keeps the Confederation interesting. Later, as Com returned to the bridge, Communications Officer Huang approached Alex, grinning. So, Counter-Admiral, how long before they realize that rank doesn't technically exist in our military? Elix's eyes sparkled. Longer than it'll take Admiral Vexelar to realize his precious thorough inspections policy just became the Quadrant's biggest punchline. Chief, Engineer Clove snorted. All because he couldn't let go of that pronunciation correction at the diplomatic gala. The Confederation Navy, masters of ingenuity and galactic-scale pettiness. Elix smoothed her uniform. Let's get the cafeteria back online, shall we? 6 months later, at a remote Drazanian outpost so neglected even the cargo arrived fossilized, former trade facilitator Braxpal stamped delivery forms in triplicate. His scales were dull. Only one forearm bore a faded band indicating his status as tertiary goods processor, 5th class. The airlock chimed. He looked up. A Terran diplomatic. Courier. Harmless until he saw the name, CSS Phoenix. He approved the docking request with trembling hands. Then he saw the message attached. Just a routine inspection. No need to stand on ceremony. Littered Commander Reed security footage later captured all 4 of his arms flailing wildly, flinging data pads, straightening his uniform, and trying to climb into a waste chute. Across the Confederation, the footage went viral. The lesson: you might outgun humans, outmaneuver them, maybe even outsmart them, but shove one during an inspection, you won't last 5 minutes.